Victoria Chick is a contemporary figurative artist and early 19th and 20th century print collector. She's based in beautiful Silver City, New Mexico. It's in the southwest corner of New Mexico between Tucson and El Paso. And she is joining us here on Big Blend Radio's third Friday Family History Show today to talk about families that have 2 to 3 or maybe 5 generations of artists in them. Victoria's article about these families is going to be featured in the summer issue of Big Blend Radio and TV magazine, but you can see it right now on blendradioandtv.com. You'll see Victoria in our expert department, and you'll be able to read all kinds of articles on art history and listen to interviews with her. But most importantly, go to her website. It's victoriachick.com, and she's got some great articles there, but you get to see her work. That's the most important thing. Hey, Victoria, how are you?
I'm great, Lisa. I'm glad to be talking to you today.
Hey, it's exciting. Nancy and I were talking about this. Like, we're in Yuma, Arizona at the historic Coronado Motor Hotel on our tour, and we're back on the road again. We're coming your way.
I guess you are. Yeah, I noticed you switched locations. So it's probably like going home, isn't it?
Yeah, it is like being home here. You know, this is our tour headquarters from the last time we started the tour, phase 1. Now we're on phase 2. That is never going to end until, I don't know, we can't move or something.
Yeah.
But this is our tour headquarters. I know you've stayed here. You come through Yuma with you and Mike a lot too, and it's not that far down the road from you. So it's exciting. Well, it's exciting to be back.
We always enjoyed staying at the Coronado. I mean, it's a really neat place. So I can see where you're probably settled in very well.
Cozy for now, and then off we go again. And I'll tell you what, Yuma has changed since we were here before. We were here 3 years ago. Back and forth a lot, and we came back here through those 3 years anyway. But there's been an art renaissance here with murals painted all over the downtown, all around Yuma, and public art, even bike racks that are art. It just seems like they're really. We've got a black box theater now here. Mm-hmm. I mean, all these different things happening, so it's really good to see, and I think it's exciting. The Southwest is known for art just like Silver City is, so it's good to see brewing. Yeah. But now let's talk about these families of artists, and at the end I want to catch up on Silver City because I know you've got some great events coming up too. But this article, this is pretty wild when you think about musicians and everybody having, musicians in their family. We've got artists in our families. But some of these families, it's neat. Do you think it just goes through our veins that we like, here's the music gene, here's the art gene?
Well, I know the genes have a lot to do with it. I mean, but other things have influence too. And I kind of came to that conclusion when I was researching some of these families. A lot of times we hear about one member of a family that's very famous or has done something really outstanding, whether it's music or sports or art. And we dig a little deeper. We find out that there are other people in the family. Maybe even skip a generation or two. But this is an interesting one. I thought it was interesting. I kind of looked at all the 5 families that I wrote about, and there were some interesting, I don't know what you'd call them, factoids, for lack of a better word. Because in one of them we've got a guy who's been called the father of the National Park System. He was an artist. Another one,
Thomas-Moran.
Another one was one of the most successful early painters that was a woman. And one guy in another family started the approach to learning to be an artist that's still used in schools today. And,
it's amazing.
And then
what about the Baroque? The Baroque people.
Yeah,
I thought that was music, but apparently not.
Well, there's 2 of them. Yeah, two artistic disciplines there, and then the one that really blew my mind was the family of Yoshidas in Japan, where, I mean, it's like they're the poster family for genes having an influence, because there's like 9 artists and they do not skip generations. They just keep going. And that's 9 artists so far. So,
wow.
There's a lot to write about here.
It's interesting because I think that they also marry into artists. So there's just this common language, I think, that happens. I know with musicians, even when a musician comes on a show, because some musicians are outspoken, the front people. Some musicians are like, I don't want to talk, you can just listen to my music, and then they'll come on the show, and then as soon as they know that Nancy and I are musicians, then it's like, okay, I can relax now. And if we have a co-host who's a musician that's out there really going on in music, we don't do that anymore, but then they're like, okay, I can talk to that person. We're not talking to you. We're talking to the musician because it's a language.
Yeah, it is. And some people are, I think artists in general are maybe not exactly loners, but their work speaks for them, whatever it is, whatever their work is. And they don't like to have to describe their work verbally because, heck, the work is there. It ought to speak for itself. And they are reticent to talk about it.
It's true. I mean, it could be, I think the artist genes can result in musicians, artists, and all performers of any kind. It's I'm going to do things my way.
Yeah.
You know, there's that.
Yeah, and then there's other instances where a person might have inherited a lot of talent, but they perceive their parents or their grandparents as being so famous that they can't match up, and so they don't even try. Hank Williams, I picked it up too there. Yeah. So I suppose having a really talented predecessor could be intimidating as well as inspiring.
It's interesting because I look at like Willie Nelson, and then his son Lucas Nelson and Micah Nelson, the youngest. You know, they're the last part. You know, because he's had a lot of wives, and a lot of fun over the years. And you know, we interviewed Lucas Nelson, and I was very like I didn't want to go on his dad, you know, because it was about his career and what he's doing, you know, and he's an amazing guitarist and songwriter, and he was really like, no, I celebrate. This is what my dad is and what he's done, and he loves his dad, and he's like, I'm this in style, but he plays with his dad all the time, and it's like, no, it's about embracing and coming together. It's like I think Nancy and I are that way too. It's like, okay, this is in our genes. Obviously, the magazine publishing thing is weirdly in us. And it's all in there. But like I don't do what she does art-wise. She doesn't do what I do as a musician. It's very different. We touch on each other's stuff, but there is a balance. And at times it's like, just let me have my thing, man.
Yeah.
No, there is that. But you grow up out of that. But that I remember that with what we interviewed the daughter of Anthony Hopkins. His daughter totally do not bring up my dad. And we couldn't even, and it's like, okay. And, Sir Anthony Hopkins. And it's like, I don't want to discuss him, and I don't know what happened.
But the first thing we wanted to do was say, hey, how's your dad?
I know.
Let's cut that little line of communication off.
but you really, I always go like, it's their craft, their art. So there's that balance, and it really, I think it depends on who you are as an individual. And when you watch, I think that's why people watch celebrities so much, is to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my mom was an artist. My grandmother on my mom's side was an artist, and I think when you're looking at what gets passed down in your DNA, that there is that. But I think that it's also how you're brought up. Like, are you allowed to be an artist when your parent is an artist? Because in some places you're not, in some families. My mom bought us those little paint-by-number oil painting things.
Yes.
And then she would always pick out what we were going to paint. So by the second painting thing, painted over all the numbers and lines, so I could do my own thing. Yeah, and I turned it like it was a portrait kind of style thing painting. So I made it a landscape. I turned it around. I got rid of all the little spaces and all that. I mixed all the colors differently, and I painted what I wanted to paint. And she goes, "That's not what you're supposed to do." And I'm like, "Okay, that's funny coming from an artist." You know.
Well, there's all different kinds of artists too. You know, some people are very technical, and other people are very free. So, you were obviously the freer.
Yeah, I don't like those lines, and I don't like rules either.
No.
It's interesting because when you think about in the article, you've got these families, and obviously you talk about the Wyeths, which are huge. I mean, this family's huge. But then you go into the one lady, and I cannot, Artemisia.
Artemisia Gentileschi.
Oh, Gentileschis. Wow. Well done. Wow.
Oh, cool.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean,
like a song.
You should have heard me at the beginning of the show. I'm like, I don't, glad Victoria's coming on and saying about this because, But anyway, this is crazy because her dad was an amazing artist.
Yes, he was, and he was the one. He nurtured her ability, her innate ability to be an artist, and she wound up being more famous than he was. I don't know that she was better than he was. I think they were both really good
Amazing.
artists. But she became more famous in the 1970s because of the feminist movement, and the reason for that was because her father, when he got to the point where he thought that he had taught her all he could teach her, he turned her over to another artist whose name was Tassi, I think, Tassi. And anyway, in the course of their student-teacher relationship, he raped her. And so for some reason that was recorded because the feminists picked up on this when they examined her life history. And so she became like the example of women are just getting a raw deal, and which I don't think was really true. But in her case, this experience did happen to her. It didn't ruin her life because she was a good artist, number one, and number two, she wound up marrying another artist, and she had a number of children who, interestingly enough, never wanted to become artists, even though she offered to train them.
I think when you look at the history of women, our art form seems to have started with sit in the parlor and embroider. So number one, we know where you are because you're indoors, and number two, you're doing like little
culinary arts.
Yes, and so that's like right there with sewing, which is right there with cleaning, which is right there with fixing dinner. So
they were utilitarian things. And they were trying to make them beautiful, but they were kind of stuck into the utilitarian mode. Samplers and things skills that you could use for other things like sewing clothes,
crochet, knitting.
Yeah. Well, so she really was like one of those early stories of the Me Too movement. When you think about the feminist movement in the 70s, but. Maybe her dad was really trying to help her, or maybe he knew the guy was that way. Who knows? I don't know.
No, I don't. He probably did. I don't think he actually knew. I think the guy was just probably a jerk.
Yeah.
Well, then she went on. She went on. She went all over Italy. She was invited to come to help her father, who was doing paintings in France for King Charles I. And so she went there, and King Charles loved her artwork and bought several paintings that she did.
That's awesome.
She left there because she went back to Italy because they were going to get involved in a war in England, so she didn't think she ought to stick around. But an interesting life, and she didn't let the bad things direct her life completely or control her life. She went beyond. She was above that. So I think she was a very admirable person.
I think when you're in the arts too, that you're channeling that stuff out of yourself. When you paint or create, it's kind of a therapeutic thing. But one thing I looked at her self-portrait, and I think it's awesome. I mean, it's a beautiful painting, and it's kind of this strong thing, like I will paint no matter what. It kind of says that I will move forward in my life.
I'm a woman, and I'm painting.
Yeah, exactly.
Watch this.
But there's also the self-portrait of this. I've got to pronounce this correctly. Annabelle Carracci. Annabelle Carracci. Yeah.
Annabelle Carracci.
Okay, I'm digging this. Okay, so here's a completely a question that has nothing to do with families, but it kind of made me think today was all these self-portraits. So many artists do these self-portraits, and I find that interesting because when you go to writing school, the first thing they do is if you're going to write, you need to write yourself, your story, your biography. You need to do in 2,000 words, write who you are, and then you're like, oh no, that's the worst thing ever. I don't want to do that, And so is the self-portrait that same kind of lesson?
Well, other than the fact that it's not an assignment usually, but I think self-portraits come about more often because people or artists are in a lull, maybe I'll call it, and they don't have a commission to work on. I'm thinking back then, and they don't have a model handy, but they do have a mirror, and so they do self-portraits. Like Rembrandt did a lot of self-portraits, and artists tend to do them. I think you do learn a lot. I've done some self-portraits. I did one that my mother just hated, and it doesn't like you at all because the face is green.
That's funny.
But I pulled it out a few months ago, and I hung it up, and I thought I really like that, and.
Why are you green?
Okay, so when we come to Silver City, can we see the self-portrait? I want to see it. I want to see.
And I want to know why you're green.
Yeah, why are you green?
Are you an alien?
I'm not Helen.
Oh, see, and that's it. She just said you've got to look at the work, and then that's up to you because the art should speak for itself.
Now when you did this, when you said the self-portrait person is now going to look in the mirror and try to paint according to the mirror, I can't. My mind can't even go there because looking in the mirror and trying to do, aren't we going to?
No, you distance yourself. It's like that. You're looking at shapes and you're looking at relationships of lines to shapes, and you're not even thinking about you when you're doing this. And also, when you look at self-portraits, if you go through a book and it has a bunch of self-portraits in it, you'll see that they're not straight on for the most part. Most of them are sort of at a three-quarter angle. And that was so you look at their canvas most of the time. They study the mirror, and then they paint the canvas. So they're usually not straight on. Once in a while you find one that is.
What about,
you can't do a selfie dead on.
But how about, this would be fun for artists, okay? Paint your self-portrait without looking in the mirror or a photo. Just paint what you think you look like.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be fun.
Do you know, whenever I think of Lois Duffy, the artist in Silver City, I always see her painting. I love that self-portrait of her that she did.
Yeah, it's
I always
wonderful.
see her painting. I think of her, and, I know her face. I know who she is. And I think she's an amazing artist.
Yes,
but I
she's
see
wonderful.
her painting. Yeah. For some reason, that painting comes to my mind.
Because she's right in your face.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah.
I like
and
Lois.
The fact that is so much bigger than life size. So it's a very arresting thing to see when you come into her gallery there.
I think it's cool having these self-portraits when we're talking about artist families, and then here's the painting of them. It's neat because they're painting, like you're saying, they're doing it in different ways. But the one guy, man, it's a total side profile. I can't say their name, Carracci dude.
Yeah,
the Carracci dude. He's not gonna. I know. I got to watch how I say that. Anyway, that's like a side view, and it's like, how did you do that? That's interesting, you know, and I can see how they do that with mirrors or whatever, but you know, there's going to be this authenticity to it, or it's going to be a complete smokescreen. But then you're saying, no, you're not really even thinking of yourself. You're just doing the lines, the face, the shape, and everything. So it's interesting, but we get to see who they are, you know, and then get to understand that feeling of who the family is. And I think part of, like we were saying in the beginning, of these families breeding other artists, not necessarily reproducing that way, but having, you know, just kind of multiplies it. It becomes this, it's like, you know, the family doctor, and then next thing you know, the son or the daughter becomes a doctor because they're in that world and they like it and they're around it.
Yeah.
You know, they may not have become an artist. If they were separated at birth, right, and the parent was one side of the world and the child was on the other side, it would be interesting to see what would happen, you know.
Oh, without the
they may have, you know, there's more to creativity than visual art or music or whatever. So if someone has got creative genes, they're going to come out some way. And, you know, they might be master criminals, who knows? But they could be scientists. I mean, look at Leonardo. How many interests he had, or outlets he had,
amazing,
as an artist. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, yes, he could be technical and then not technical.
Right.
I mean, look at his drawings of helicopters.
You could even be a business person and be incredibly creative.
Especially in tax time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We all become artists.
I think we just all did that. What is the mannerist thing with Carracci?
The mannerist?
Was it Ludovico?
That was interesting. When the Renaissance came along in Florence, it gave rise to a number of people we've all heard of, like Raphael and Leonardo and all these artists that we consider great masters. Well, after about 100 years of great masters, a lot of people thought that everything had been invented that could be invented art-wise, and that the best work had already been done, so they quit looking at anything except paintings that had already been done. So they studied past artworks, and they were more or less copying a style and a way of positioning figures, or there wasn't a lot of innovation going on after the High Renaissance, and they slipped into this thing that they call it. They were painting in the manner of Leonardo, say, or in the manner of Raphael, and because they weren't looking at real models, they were just looking at how people were painted before. Everything got kind of stylized, I'll call it. It was good painting. The painting actually was good, but things.
But it wasn't them.
It got distorted, and so they would kind of turn, and they were into this kind of thing of gracefulness. So they made the figures a little bit elongated, which put them sometimes out of proportion. Or they made a baby that looked like it was probably about 60 inches long, for instance. and it was really many of them were kind of bizarre. But the Carracci came along, and they looked at this and they said, this is awful. This is terrible. So they started this kind of a school for artists, and they made them just have a sketchbook. That every day they had to draw in their sketchbook, and they had to look at actual real life stuff. They couldn't be copying statues, and they couldn't be copying other people's past work. So their techniques, or their way of their approach, was very successful. And so they were the beginning kind of the Baroque period, which is very dynamic, A lot of action in the figures. The figures were more believable than they had been for a while with the Mannerists, and so they kind of started that movement, and that movement lasted into the 17th century, late 1600s, 16th century, into the 17th century, and kind of brought back really good drawing for one thing.
Wow, so maybe that's why his self-portrait is so amazing. Like he's like straight up, And then the Baroque thing, that's interesting because Baroque music is so ding, 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 ding.
There's attention to detail.
I know, ding, ding, ding. And then the Baroque style of painting
is in Baroque
different.
music, you have one thing coming one way, one theme coming one way, and then something else will move into it, and they'll join up for a while, and then they'll go off again. And it's very dynamic. It's in music in the same way that painting, the compositions of painting were really dynamic. Maybe you've seen the Baroque ceiling paintings in where you're looking up to the sky, and there might be
Caesar's palace.
There might be like carriages with horses flying overhead, for instance.
Yeah.
So the perspective is really bizarre, very a lot of movement, really dynamic pictures. So it was all happening in that era.
Very interesting, man. How these, like you're saying at the beginning, that all these artists were like really prominent in what they did and how they shaped art, and what they've done. And it's interesting because it's men and women in here that are notable.
Yes.
And what I was going to say, Thomas-Moran, obviously with his paintings of all the national parks, it's not all of them, but Yellowstone, and but I was very interested about the connection between him and then also Peter Moran and Ed Moran, in a way, kind of got out into what was going on in the world. Was it the natural side, the maritime history, the landscape? So they seem to have some kind of connection in that. But Mary, his wife, that was she's into they're all into nature in some way. They really seem to be into that.
And I mean, I find that now they were working in the early to mid 19th century in the United States. And I always find that interesting because this was a time of westward expansion. It was a time when there was a lot of maritime travel. There were still sailing ships, but things were getting ready to move into steamships. So you see the Moran brothers came from a sort of artistic family. Their family were weavers, and then when the Industrial Revolution came along, that wasn't working out very well because their cottage industry weaving wasn't going to be able to keep up with the big looms in the factories. So everybody came to the United States. The four boys, who probably, if they'd stayed in England, might have tried to hang on to the weaving business, but they were very creative, and so everybody became an artist of one kind or another. Three of them were painters: Edward, Thomas, Peter were painters. But Peter also was really into etching, because etching was brand new in the 1870s, and he wound up coming west with his brother. His brother, of course, did the famous painting of the Grand Canyon, the famous painting of Yellowstone that were like 12 feet long and 8 feet high or something like that. Cool. And those paintings were purchased by Congress, and they helped inspire the national park system, which is, that's fantastic when you think, you don't start out trying to influence, but your work does have an influence. So he was very important to the parks that we enjoy today. Then we got his brother would come back by himself, Peter Moran, and he would do drawings. He had a really great rapport with the Indian tribes in Arizona and New Mexico, and so he wound up being I can't remember the term now, like the the artist.
Dude who works
yes, thank you. I wrote it down and now I forget it.
That works in the Indian Bureau of Affairs.
He was influential. And other people then saw the artwork because it was prints, and there were many copies of it distributed around on the East Coast and even back into the European continent. And so people came to the Southwest because of him. And so that was how he was one of the reasons that the art colonies got established in the Taos Santa Fe area.
See, that's amazing how this whole thing happens. And they just spread out and conquer.
Well, remember when we were in the Sequoias, the park ranger was telling us about how they used to chop down sequoia trees and ship them by railroad all the way to the east, so people in the east could understand what they could see.
Victoria did a whole article on that.
I know.
Interview.
So remember that. So when you're thinking about what art has actually done to convey without destruction. Hello, look at this in nature. We went outside, we saw this, we painted it so that you can also go outside and see it.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the Yoshida family, this is interesting to me because there was 5 generations, 9 of them are artists. And this is, and
there's probably more now. My research, probably only went to about the 1990s or the 2000s. So there are probably more now that, if I research it again, I'd probably find more. But it was fascinating, and I thought it was really interesting. It was like their family was like a business. It seems like a brand name, and so Yoshida, and so when their daughter would marry somebody, she didn't take his name; he took her name because it was a good business move.
See, now that is so weird. Yeah, I mean, I vote for that.
It probably
That's
made perfectly good sense to them.
Yeah. But I mean, because women have always lost their names when they got married.
Right.
And now all of a sudden they go, no, I'm keeping mine. Mine's better than yours.
Well, no, it's about keeping your individuality. You can be married, but have your individuality. That makes for a better marriage.
So why
did they weren't all the same kind of artists. I mean, there were painters, and there
painting,
woodcut artists. Let's see. One of them was an anime artist. One of the more recent ones.
That's cool.
And so they followed their own art form, but they were still members of that family. And was maybe it was almost like a clan. I don't know.
But they're all speaking the same language in a way. You know what I mean? They're all. I mean,
they don't step on each other's toes.
Yeah, there's that's my thing over here, but we're all in that creative zone. And that's what I mean about the same language. It's about that creative zone. And I think then you understand each other. Someone will understand that an artist has just gone into their studio for a week and leave me alone because I'm doing I'm in that zone. Because it's true. When you're a creative person, it's very hard to be with someone who is 9 to 5. You know what I mean?
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I believe everyone has creativity, so I'm not saying there's non-creative people because
whether they use it or
it's about how you foster that and how you bring that into your life, because creativity is key to everything. I mean,
I think we have this debate, and it's been going on since people have been studying behavior. But is it heredity, or is it nature or nurture? Those concepts. And I have a feeling that nurture is extremely important, but that it gets overridden by nature, because if you have the genes, the genes for creativity, they're going to come out some way, and you will be compelled. I mean, you could not have any genes, and you could have somebody bugging you all the time, putting canvas and paint and doing everything they can to make you an artist, and you're going to sit there and wish you were, at the bowling alley or something. So
Exactly.
I think your basic DNA is the main driving force, and if you could combine that with a nurturing environment, it would you probably be miles ahead. But
I think that's a huge deal. I think that's a huge deal because when people aren't getting this is, now we're going to get into a self-help show. But it's true. If you're not doing, people like, you have to find yourself thing, and it's like, you do something, and maybe you're not in an environment of art, right? You could be born into a family and you have the genes from it, because maybe it's, your great grandmother or something had this, and but the rest of them didn't have that gene. I mean, that's what happened. And so nature says, oh no, it's time to have some art back in the family. Everybody's not being creative enough. Bring this person in. So then that nature does that. Here is a person, and in a family that doesn't get it, okay, so you're not introduced to it, you're not surrounded. I mean, maybe you're homeschooled in the middle of a prairie somewhere, I don't know. And then you're gonna know, that's where I think where people get into a upset world is where there's something in you and you don't quite know what it is, and you might start expressing it in sand. It might be music. It might be you're going to start like carving things on the wall, and people are going to think you're nuts. And it's like, but I have to let this out in some way. And so this is where education is crucial. Education is key. I mean, it's like it allows people to explore these things that they're interested in. And I think the word education has got to this point of being stuffy, and people are like, I don't want history or education. Like, oh no, that's going to be taxing to the brain. Not if you find stuff that resonates with you and makes you propel yourself forward, and get passionate about something. I think we have internal passion when it's something we're supposed to be doing.
Well, yeah, and having taught art in two different ways, teaching art to classrooms of kids in Africa, and watching them find out their own talents, and just little kids with a piece of paper and a crayon, and they had never had an art class before, and just draw something, and it was really interesting because they hadn't done that ever before. And I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to teach these people because I don't know what they know and what they don't know, because nobody knew. So they had a piece of paper and a crayon. They were about 8 years old, and they haven't had that opportunity. And what they drew was really interesting. And then teaching other elderly people who wanted to learn to paint in oils, teaching them was a whole other experience, where there were people who you could see had this innate talent, and others who really wanted it but couldn't do it. They just couldn't do it. I mean, they struggled with it.
Yeah. I had a flash through the brain here of I really like insider art or outsider art, and those people. I mean, by that I mean people who are untrained, I'll say. They're smart people. They have probably not very much schooling, not a lot of sophistication because they haven't traveled and they haven't seen a lot. But they have the same feelings everybody does, the same motivations as most of us, and they don't have art supplies, so to speak. But they make do with found objects, with things like tar or whitewash or charcoal, things that we don't normally think of as art materials, that they produce really compelling statements about their lives and about how they live in society and what they think of it. And if you ever get a chance to go to an outsider art exhibit, it would be it's worthwhile.
Oh wow, that's interesting. That's interesting what you're talking about, Victoria. I do want to ask you this because I don't know what it is, and I'm going to ask, even if it's a stupid question, which I don't believe there are any of those. you talked about an anime artist, and I have no idea what that is. And Nancy's looking at me like you should know, but I don't know what an anime artist is.
You've seen anime, and you just maybe say those are cartoons because it's kind of it's a Japanese style of cartooning, and it is animated, and that's where the anime comes from.
Pokemon.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've seen that.
Right.
I wanted to make sure because I'm like, okay, and especially when you look through the years, so it's interesting. There's so many different styles and things, so that's cool. It's such a cool story. Everyone, check it out on BlendRadioTV.com. You'll see it under Victoria's expert category. But Victoria, Silver City, a lot happening. You got the Red Dot Artist Studio Tour coming up.
There's so much happening, I can't keep up with it. Yes, we've got the Red Dot Artist Studios Tour. We've got 23 artists and 22 studios. We also have a great party. That's on May 4th and May 5th from 9 to 5, Saturday and Sunday. But on Friday, we're having like a big party, a kickoff party for this tour. It's going to be downtown in the Light Art Space Gallery, which is a beautiful, large gallery. We are having a sample of everybody's work. Every studio artist's work will be there. We're having a light art show projected of artwork. We've got Food by the Duck Stop, which is a fabulous catering place here in Silver City. We are serving refreshments of all kinds, and all of this is free. And we just want the public to come and join us and have a good time. We did this for the first time last year, and it was so fabulous. Also, we are having a $49.99 art auction, and this is where each of us artists have contributed a piece that is worth more than that. And you buy a $1 ticket, and you can put it in a basket under the artwork that you are interested in. And at various times during the night, a ticket will be drawn out of that basket, and then if your ticket is drawn, you have the right, or in fact the responsibility, to purchase the artwork for $49.99. A true bargain. So we did that last year, and it really was fun. So.
Oh, cool.
So everyone, this is the first
unique.
weekend of May, and it's such a good excuse to get out and explore Silver City. It's so beautiful, and go on a drive and meet artists and see art at work as well. I think that's so cool. You're having this wonderful event, in the downtown district too, which is so cool. You've got such a beautiful downtown. I love it. And the big ditch. Everyone's going to go for a walk along the big ditch in downtown. It's pretty in the spring.
We've got there are new murals. You've got to see these when you come visit.
Oh.
You've got to see them.
Oh,
They're
cool.
fabulous. Yeah.
Cool. And
there's a whole bunch of new murals since you've been here.
Oh, wow. Excited about that.
And also, this is.
Go ahead.
This is the weekend of the famous Tour of the Gila bicycle race.
Oh, that's right.
So it overlaps our event. It's the joint is jumping, so to speak, and where all the motels practically are full. So
wow.
But people are opening their homes. People that don't normally have bed and breakfast type things are now in the bed and breakfast. So we've got a lot of people coming in. Yeah, and then let's see, 3 weeks after that, we've got the Silver City Blues Festival.
Nice.
So that's a 3-day deal, and as part of that, the artists are doing a paint out Silver City. So there are awards opportunities for anybody who's a plein air artist may want to come here and compete for the big prizes. And let's see what else. I guess that's about it. All I can think of anyway. But it's going to be a very busy month, and we're excited about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Silver City is an awesome destination. It's at the head of the Continental Trail, Continental Divide Trail, I should say. It's the Gila Wilderness, the Gila Cliff Dwellings, the Gila Forest, and the very first wilderness area. and I think our largest forest and one of the first forests, national forests that we have as well. So it's amazing. Aldo Leopold country, everybody. So check it out and go to the downtown. And we can't wait to go back. It's been years since we've been in Silver City, and we're craving Silver City time. But
we're waiting for your arrival.
Well, it's going to be loud, right?
Yeah,
it's going to be loud. You're going to hear our drums beating as we get into town. Everyone, again, Victoria's article is in the summer issue of Big Blend Radio and TV magazine coming out at the end of May. And also go to victoriachick.com to keep up with Victoria. But, Victoria, your music today is Please Remember Me. And this was written by artist Ted DeGrazia in Tucson, the DeGrazia Gallery in the Sun. And I wanted to do this and play this because it's a title track to an album. They found the manuscript for his music after he passed away. They found, they were digging through the archives. They have, just tons of stuff there. And they found that he'd written all this music. And so his son, Domingo DeGrazia, who's a flamenco guitarist and Spanish guitarist, took the music and went to the Tucson Jazz Orchestra, University Jazz Orchestra, and they recreated his music. And Domingo added some of his music in there. So this is Please Remember Me, written by Ted DeGrazia, and his son got involved. So it's a family story of music and art. So there you go.
I like
Domingo
it.
Doesn't paint. He's definitely a creative human being, and he's a lawyer that helps kids. He's a pilot. He's a race car driver. He's like his dad, like a Renaissance man,
Yeah.
And just a great guy. So here it is. Please remember me. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you soon, Victoria.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
Okay, thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We'll meet again.